I had gotten his death certificate during the Vietnam War, and I believed he was gone forever. But on my grandson's 16th birthday, something happened that changed everything. The house was full, crowded, loud, and messy. Cheap decorations hung from the ceiling. The smell of barbecue mixed with the strong scent of fake vanilla air fresheners. Kids were yelling about some new video game console. Someone had country music playing too loudly from a speaker no one would admit was theirs. People were talking over each other. It was chaos. I sat alone in a corner of the living room, exactly where they liked me to be. The old couch dipped, where I always sat. The sunlight from the windows didn't reach me. I was holding a small wooden box. I had held that box every day for the last 47 years. It was made of dark oak, and on it was a brass plate that said, William T. Ransom, beloved husband, 1948 to 1976 inch. The corners were worn from time, and a small crack ran across the lid. I had never opened it. I was too scared. The box had been sealed by a man I never met. It came with a letter from William's closest friend, and it was brought to me by a soldier in uniform who couldn't even look me in the eyes. They told me William died in 1976 during a training accident in Nevada. It wasn't a battle, just a military vehicle that caught fire. They said it was connected to his service in the Vietnam War. There was no body. They said his remains couldn't be recovered. All I got was this box and a folded flag. Even the flag didn't feel like an honor. It felt like they were saying sorry. That box stayed with me everywhere, from our first home to the small place I rented when I could barely pay rent after he died, and finally to this house. I bought this house on my own. I paid for it slowly, fixing it up piece by piece, while raising 2 kids by myself, Michael and Rose. 2 kids, 1 widowed mother, and a lifetime of pretending that keeping quiet was the same as being strong. She's still holding that damn box, Michael said from the kitchen. Ma, he's dead. Let it go. I heard him. I always heard him. Maybe if you'd been a better wife, Linda said, pouring wine into a red plastic cup, he wouldn't have left that night. If I ever get that crazy, my granddaughter said without even looking up from her phone, just take me out before I turn into her. I held the box even tighter. Not for them, for me. It was the only thing in the house that never lied to me. The party kept going. They lit candles on a cake shaped like a baseball. The kids sang. The adults drank. Someone took a family photo and cut me out of it. I heard them laughing about it later. I didn't say anything. I remembered the last night before the military came. William had rushed out, saying he had to get ready for his final trip. He kissed my forehead and said, "Be strong." That was the last time I heard his voice. Soon after, I got a letter from David Miller, his best friend. He wrote that the accident happened fast, said William didn't suffer, said he saw it happen. I believed him. I had to. Now here I was, sitting in a noisy house full of people I helped raise, feeling like a shadow in my own family. The box sat in my lap. It was so heavy now, not because of the wood, but because of what it meant. I couldn't put it down. It meant everything. Linda walked past me with a tray of tiny cupcakes. "This is a party, Ma. Could you put that thing away?" "It is my husband," I said quietly. He was my husband. "Well, he was my father-in-law 47 years ago," she snapped. "He's not coming to the party." More laughter, more ignoring me. Or maybe they were doing it on purpose. I watched Michael raise a cheap beer to toast his son, watched Rose quietly refill the chips, and I felt how far I had drifted from my own children, how someone could be in the middle of a big family and still feel completely alone. Then the doorbell rang. Not a knock, not someone trying the handle, a real, proper ring. 3 long chimes, like the person on the other side knew someone would answer. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Michael raised his eyebrow. Who shows up uninvited? Probably another neighbor complaining about the parking. Linda said. I stood up. Nobody tried to stop me. My legs hurt, but I had walked harder roads in worse shoes. I still carried the box. I wouldn't leave it behind, not even for a second. I walked to the door and slowly opened it. And there he was, William. He looked much older now. His face had deep lines, his beard was thin and messy, and his hands shook a little. But his eyes were the same. Not like a dream or a memory. They were real. He was real. Alive. Everyone in the room behind me gasped. Someone dropped a plate. Linda said a bad word I hadn't heard since the day we buried him. The box in my hand slipped and hit the floor with a sharp sound. The lid broke open. A small cloud of ash poured out onto the doormat. Michael looked frozen, his eyes wide in shock. My granddaughter screamed. I looked down at the ashes I had carried for almost 50 years. Then I looked up at the man who had let me believe he was dead all this time. And I asked, in a voice I hadn't used in years, then who the hell did I bury? December 1976. The morning sun was rising over the rooftops in our quiet Missouri neighborhood. But to me, it didn't feel like morning. The house was still. Too still. William had just left again for the army. They said it was Vietnam. But he was with a support group that stayed in the U.S. I held on to that hope like it would keep him safe. Then the letter came. It was in an envelope from the Department of Defense, thick and heavy in my hands. The return address said, Casualty Notification Branch. My breath stopped before I even opened it. Staff Sergeant William T. Ransom has been confirmed deceased during combat travel related to the Vietnam War. Non-recoverable remains. Cause: vehicle explosion. Identity confirmed by surrounding evidence. No signature. No officer's name. No rank. No one took responsibility for the letter. It just ended there. Cold. 3 days later, I got another package, this time by private courier. No military seal, just my name written faintly on the front. Inside was a wooden box. Dark oak. A brass plate. William T. Ransom, 1948 to 1976. There was a letter inside, written in blue pen on plain paper. It was from David Miller, an old friend of William's from the Army. Helen, it began. I'm writing with a heavy heart. I was the one who had to identify the remains. There wasn't much left. It was quick, painless. I handled the cremation like William always wanted. He told me if anything ever happened, I should spare you from the pain of seeing it. I'm sorry. He was a good man. I had heard William mention David Miller before, once or twice, but never anything detailed. I had never met him, and after that letter, I never heard from him again. No return address, no follow-up. I tried to find him years later, but nothing ever turned up. Still, I believed the letter. What else could I do? There was no body, no grave, no funeral with soldiers and flags. Just the box, that letter, and a house that suddenly felt too big, too quiet. Michael was 10. Rose was 8. I told them their father had died a hero, that he gave his life for his country. I wore black. I cried when no one was watching. At night, I'd hold that box close and whisper his name. I never remarried. I never even went on a date. Letting another man near me felt wrong, like cheating. William was gone, but I was still his wife in my heart. I had to pawn my wedding ring that winter to pay the heating bill. I started cleaning homes during the day and offices at night. The cleaning chemicals cracked my hands. My back hurt every time I bent down. But I never stopped working. I couldn't. There was no one to help me. Michael hated that I worked so much. He said I cared more about a dead man than the living ones in front of me. But he never understood. I didn't work for William's memory. I worked because I had no choice. No husband, no military pension, just 2 kids who needed food, and a box full of ashes no one else wanted. I kept the box on the fireplace mantel. After the kids moved out, I placed it on my nightstand. When I moved to a smaller house in Florida, I brought it with me, wrapped it in bubble wrap, carried it on my lap during the flight. I wouldn't let anyone put it in the luggage. Some nights, I stayed awake, sitting up in bed, whispering to that box, pretending William could hear me, pretending he missed me too. I used to imagine that somehow he had seen the kids grow up, that he was proud of them, that if it had been me who died, he would have done the same for me. I stayed loyal all those years, not just to his name, but to what he stood for in my heart, the idea that I had been deeply loved. That death didn't take that love away. For 47 years, I never opened that box. I kept it clean, polished the brass plate, but I never looked inside, not because I was scared, because it felt holy, until the day he came back, until the box fell open, and the ashes spilled out on the floor like a cruel joke. And suddenly I remembered that first letter had no signature. The second package had no return address, no funeral, no flag, nothing official at all. And I realized maybe I had believed it because silence is louder than truth, because no one told me to doubt it. Now, as I looked into the face of the man I had grieved for, the pain wasn't just from seeing him alive. It was knowing that he had left, that he had chosen to vanish, that he had let me carry grief for nearly 50 years. William T. Ransom, my husband, the ghost I lived with. He wore a light jacket that didn't fit him. His shoes had holes. His beard was gray and unkempt, but his eyes hadn't changed. They were too clear for someone who claimed not to remember. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stared at him. For a long, long time, I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside. William walked in, past the ashes on the floor, past the shocked faces of my son and granddaughter, and into the house he once called his own, the house I had worked for, piece by piece, paycheck by paycheck, after he left. Rose stayed quiet. She stood in the hallway, watching but saying nothing. Michael followed William closely, like a little boy following his dad. His face lit up like it was Christmas morning. We all sat in the living room. William took the recliner, his old chair, the one I had never thrown away. I sat on the couch. Michael sat beside him. William cleared his throat. "I know this is hard to believe," he said, "but after the explosion, I lost my memory. I wandered around for a while, lived off the grid. Slowly, I started to remember names, faces. This house. You." His words felt practiced, too smooth, too perfect. "You remember now?" I asked. He gave a slow, serious nod. "Yes, and I'm sorry." Michael jumped in. "It's a miracle, Ma. We thought he was dead, but he's here. We can start fresh." "Start over," I said, my voice rough and tired. William pulled a folder from under his arm and showed me a stack of papers, copies of house deeds, tax forms, and papers showing how much the house was worth. "This house," he said, "was bought in my name. Before I left, I never signed anything changing that." "Because you were dead," I said without emotion. "Legally presumed," he corrected. "But now that I'm back, we need to talk about selling the house and splitting the money. I have debts. Legal fees. I'm not asking for all of it, just half." I stared at the man who had let me grieve for him, let me believe I was a widow, while I worked scrubbing floors and crying myself to sleep for years. Michael added quietly, "We've been paying the property taxes the last few years, Ma. You're just living here." I slowly turned to him. You knew. He looked away. You knew he was alive. He didn't deny it. I met him 2 years ago, Michael said. He found me. He needed help. He said he wanted to make things right by selling the house. My voice shook. This house is all I have. I bought it. I paid for everything. Every wall, every tile, every repair. While you were what? Playing dead. William sighed. Helen, I get that you're upset. But this is the law. I don't want to fight. I just want what's fair. I whispered. 50-50, Michael said. Simple math. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking, but not from fear. From holding back everything I wanted to scream. I had pictured this moment 1,000 times. I used to pray he would come home, but not like this. Not holding papers and talking about money. I buried you, I said. I held your ashes and cried for 47 years. I raised 2 children alone, working late nights and selling my wedding ring to pay bills. And now you want half. William didn't say a word. I stood up. My knees hurt, but I stood tall. You're not taking my home, I said. You're not taking what I built in your absence. You walked out on this family. You don't get to walk back in with paperwork and take it all. Michael gave a dry laugh. You can't stop him. The house is in his name. Then take me to court, I said. Let a judge see what kind of man you are. Let them see what you left behind. William leaned forward. Why make this worse, Helen? We were a family once. Let's stay peaceful. You were a family once, I said. Now you're just a man with papers. And I'm a woman with memories. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen with the folder William had left behind. It was full of copies, business forms, birth records, company logos, and bank papers with the name Will T. Ransom on them. The shadows from the ceiling fan spun slowly above me as I read each page again and again. The house was quiet, except for the low hum of the fridge and the soft sounds of the birthday party still going on behind a closed door. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't confused. I was clear. I was calm. I drove to the county clerk's office with that folder. I asked for every business or property connected to the name William Ransom or Will T. Ransom or anything close to it. The clerk handed me a stack of printed reports. I flipped through them until one caught my eye. It was hard to follow, filled with numbers and details. It showed a logistics company started in Texas in 1982, listed as a co-owner, Judith and Miller. 2 children were also listed in public school records. The documents showed years of money coming in, houses being bought, cars leased, land purchased, all after 1976. All while I was told he was dead. My husband hadn't gone missing or lost his memory. He had built a new life using a new name. Back home, I stood in the doorway of the guest bedroom. Once mine, now full of old boxes and junk. I laid out the papers across the bed. Trucking income records, home loan documents for a house in Austin, Texas, birth certificates for 2 children with the same last name, and scattered throughout the folder were notes written in David Miller's handwriting, someone who had once comforted me. There were business documents, bank transfers from 2005 sent under Judith's name. His handwriting, familiar, painful. After he mailed me that box of ashes, I closed my eyes. My chest felt heavy. Forgetting may have been a choice for him, but betrayal wasn't something I could forget. That evening, I asked William to come over. He arrived looking pale and nervous, still holding that same folder, as if we were going to continue discussing the house. But I had my own folder now, the real one. I placed it on the table. He saw it and stiffened. I found your company, I said. In 1982, 6 years after you supposedly died, you started Wilt Ransom Trucking in Texas. Your business partner was Judith and Miller. He sighed and ran his fingers through his thin hair. Helen, I needed a new start. So you lied, I said. You pretended to be dead, disappeared, took the insurance money, started a new life. A wife, 2 kids, a house. And you never said a word. He stayed silent. What about the ashes? I asked, my voice flat. That box I got was from a crematorium in Nevada. No name, no identity, just ashes. I tapped the folder. The certificate doesn't belong to anyone. Those were the remains of a stranger. He shut his eyes. That was a mistake. No, I said, that was planned. I pushed a business paper toward him. David Miller helped you. He cremated someone else and sent them to me. William looked surprised. He didn't have permission. I went on. He faked your death. He said he was your friend. Also, you could vanish. William swallowed. His face turned pale. You used him, I said. You used those ashes to hide the truth. He looked away. His jaw clenched. Why? I asked softly. Why fake your own death? He finally looked at me, guilt heavy in his eyes. I wanted to be free, he said. Free from debt, from pressure, from this life. And I had lived through the mess. I had cleaned, struggled, cried over a man who hadn't died at all. That wasn't love, I said. That was survival. He leaned forward. Who's really at fault, Helen? I felt the anger rise, not wild or loud, but cold, clear anger. Controlled. I am, I said, for believing you. I believed the letter. I believed the ashes. I believed in you. I left, he whispered, but I gave you everything. A name, a family, 2 children. You gave it all through lies. I said, you betrayed me. You didn't just leave, you buried me alive. He shook his head. I was lost. No, I said, you were focused. You remembered the money. You remembered the plan. You knew how to disappear. He stood to leave. I'm sorry. Sorry won't fix this. I said, I want the truth. I want justice. At the doorway, he paused. What do you want? I looked him in the eye. I want you gone. Gone from this house. Gone from my life. And I want what's mine. He looked at the folder one last time. Then at me. His face was blank, but tears welled up in his eyes. That was the last time I saw him cry. For years, I believed grief was the worst pain a mother could carry. But betrayal, especially from your own child, cuts deeper. After William came back, and we had that talk, I noticed Michael changed. He began asking about the deed, checking on taxes, suddenly interested in things he hadn't cared about in years. His concern didn't feel real. It felt practiced, like lines from a play. One day, I dug through an old lockbox, hidden in the linen closet, wrapped in a worn-out quilt. William never knew about it. Inside were old documents, tax forms, bills, and a little ledger where I had written down spending during the 1980s and 90s. Trying to stay afloat back then. Flipping through, I noticed something strange. A bank transfer from a joint account opened by Michael in 2003. It had regular monthly payments labeled WR Trust, William Ransom Trust. Same amount each month. Too much for a son to send his mother. It wasn't help. It was a payoff. I grabbed Michael's old laptop from the hall closet. He had left it behind years ago. It barely turned on, but it worked. I checked the email folders and found them. Long email threads between Michael and someone with the email will.r62@outlook.com. One said, make sure she doesn't suspect anything. Another, keep her busy until I can file the paper. Then, she's too stubborn. You'll have to push her. And the worst one, get her into assisted living. That's when we can sell. I sat at the kitchen table, reading them all, my hand over my mouth. My stomach turned. They had planned this for years. William coming back wasn't chance. It was the final step in a plan. A setup. My own son. The boy I raised. The child I fed using coupons, dressed in clearance sale clothes. He had sold me out for money. When Michael came by that weekend, I watched him closely. He walked through the house like he owned it, opening drawers, looking around like he was sizing it up. I stopped him in the kitchen. "How long?" I asked. He blinked. "What? How long have you been working with him?" His face went cold. "That's none of your business." "I found the emails," I said. "I found the bank transfers." He didn't deny it. He didn't even blink. "Your old mom—" Michael snapped. "Step aside. Me and Dad will handle the rest." I pulled back. "Handle what?" "The house. The money. Your future," he said, leaning in. "You're not able to manage this anymore. And honestly, you're lucky we didn't do this sooner." My chest burned. "I raised you," I said, "and I did it alone." He shot back. "That's not brave. It's sad. We grew up with nothing because you couldn't let go of a man who walked out. Well, he's back now, and it's time he gets what's his." "What about what's mine?" I whispered. He laughed. "This place, you've just been living here like it's yours. But it's not." He pulled some papers out of his jacket, a power of attorney. It wasn't signed yet, but it was ready. "Sign this. We'll take care of everything. We'll even find you a nice place to live. One of those homes with a garden." I stared at the pen, but I didn't touch it. Then Rose walked in from the hallway, quiet but watching everything. Michael turned. "Don't start, Rose. You said you were with us." She didn't say a word. He held out the papers again. "Mom, sign them. You're tired. You're confused." I stood up. "No, I'm angry. And I'm clear." He rolled his eyes. "This is ridiculous. You're stuck in the past." I looked him straight in the eyes. "The past is the reason you're standing here. I worked 2 jobs. I sold my ring. I buried someone I didn't even know. All for you." He scoffed. "You were weak." "No," I said. "I was strong. And I'm still here. That makes me dangerous." Michael clenched his jaw. "Last chance, Mom. Sign." Rose stepped forward, and I said loud enough for the whole house to hear, "No." For a long time, I thought Rose's silence meant she had taken their side. She didn't speak up when Michael yelled or when William came back. I thought her silence was betrayal. But Rose had always been quiet, not because she didn't care, but because she saw everything. That night, after Michael tried to get me to sign those papers, Rose came to the kitchen. She didn't knock. She just walked in and sat across from me. My hands shook around a chipped mug. She placed a small USB drive on the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Proof," she said softly. I stared at her, confused. "I knew something was off," she said. "The way Dad came back. The way Michael treated you like a problem to solve, not a person to help." Then she told me what she had done. Months ago, Michael tried to pull her in, said she could help manage Mom's decline. As he put it, he thought if Rose was with them, I'd be easier to control. So she pretended, smiled, agreed to their ideas, but secretly recorded everything. "I wore a mic," she said, "at lunch, at home. Every time they spoke, I was recording." I picked up the USB. "It's all on there," she said. "Recordings, fake documents, the signed paper giving Michael the house if you were found mentally unfit, a fake doctor's letter, even the money trail." I swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I had to wait," she said. "Wait until they made their move." I looked at my daughter, the one I used to bathe in the sink, who cried when she lost her first tooth. Now she was a woman, strong in her quiet way. They thought I was with them. She said, "But I've always been on the side of the truth." Tears stung my eyes. "I thought I lost you." "You didn't," she said. "They just made too much noise." That week, I found a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but someone who knew how to handle elder abuse and stolen property. I gave him everything: the USB, the emails, The fake death papers, the forged doctor's notes. This is more than enough to take them down, he said. Good, I replied, because I've been buried for 47 years. We filed for an emergency order. The house was locked. William and Michael couldn't touch a thing. Their bank accounts were looked into. Court orders went out. When Michael found out, he showed up 3 days later, furious. His eyes were red, his face full of rage. You set us up? He yelled at Rose. She didn't back down. You tricked your family? He asked. No, she said. I protected mine. He turned to me. How could you do this? We're your family. I stood behind Rose. You made me a victim. Now I'm a witness. That night, William left 3 voicemails. He was crying in the last one. Helen, don't do this. We can make it right. I just wanted closure. I deleted them all. The court date came. My lawyer grinned. They won't see this coming. And they didn't. The courthouse felt colder than I expected. The floors were pale marble. The walls were dull blue-gray. It smelled like dust and cleaning fluid. Rose sat beside me, her hand resting gently on mine. Across from us sat William and Michael. Both wore suits that didn't fit, too big in the shoulders, too tight from guilt. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, began reading the case. Her voice held clear judgment. My lawyer showed everything. The fake documents, the voice recordings, the made-up medical files. When the court heard the audio of Michael joking about putting me in memory care, everyone went quiet. William didn't look at me once. Michael didn't say a word. By the second day, it was clear who had won. Mr. William Ransom and Mr. Michael Ransom. The judge said, "You are charged with elder abuse, lying about property, trying to steal a house, and forging legal papers. The evidence is clear." Then she turned to me. "Mrs. Helen Ransom, your strength is admirable. The court returns full ownership of the house to you. You are awarded 70% of all shared property and business assets. William and Michael are forever barred from claiming anything from your estate." I held Rose's hand tightly. She smiled, eyes full of tears. The judge's gavel came down. William let out a deep sigh, like he was letting go of his last lie. Michael sat slumped, fists clenched. Their tower of lies, built on my silence, had finally crumbled. But the real win came weeks later, when the sheriff showed up to remove them from the house. William stood in the living room, now empty except for dust and memories. Michael had already run off to another state, trying to leave behind the shame that followed him everywhere. William packed slowly, just a photo, an old jacket, and a bag filled with more guilt than anything useful. "I built this place," he said softly. I stood in the doorway with my arms crossed. "No," I replied. "I did." He turned to face me, his eyes red. "Helen, don't let me die out there. This house, it's all I have left of who I used to be." I looked at him, the man who once held my hand under the stars, who later disappeared and left me to pick up the pieces. He only came back when the house had value again. "Please," he begged, dropping to his knees. "Let me die here." I didn't say a word. I just watched him zip up his bag. Watched as the sheriff led him out through the same door he walked through 47 years ago, and never looked back. I stayed silent. Some silence is louder than goodbye. That night, Rose and I sat on the porch. She gave me a cup of tea. No more packing. No more lies. Just us, 2 women under the wide Florida sky, finally free. "They're gone," Rose said. "Good," I replied. "Let them stay gone." ___. I live with Rose now. The house is the same, but it feels different, more peaceful, like it's breathing easy for the first time in 47 years. Every morning, I sit on the front porch, the same porch I used to scrub by hand when we couldn't afford a mop, the same spot where Linda once said I was embarrassing her friends, where Michael once told me I didn't belong. But now it's mine. The sunlight feels different now. It doesn't demand anything. It just shines. William died 2 months after the court case. No funeral. No notice in the paper. No tears. He passed away alone in a halfway house near Tallahassee. A man who tried to come back from the dead, only to learn there was no place left for his lies. The staff called me. I said no to the ashes. Michael was arrested 6 weeks later for scamming elderly women online. The same crime he once tried to commit against me. The same people he laughed at called weak and crazy. His mugshot made the news. His eyes looked empty, like he finally saw who he really was. He tried to call Rose. She blocked him. He sent me a letter. I burned it. Some things are meant to turn to ash. But the house, this house, has become a peaceful place again. The garden Rose cares for is full of lavender and basil. She says it helps her sleep. Sometimes I catch her watching me, like she's still afraid I'll disappear. I'm not going anywhere. I tell her, not until this porch gives out beneath me. She smiles. Last week, I opened the old trunk in the attic, beneath the folded flag and that fake obituary. I found the dark wooden box, the one I used to hold like a sacred thing. The box that once held so many lies. I brought it down to the fireplace. I didn't burn it. I just placed it there, calmly, truthfully. I taped a note on top. You chose freedom. I chose memory. Now I have both. Then I walked outside. The door creaked behind me as it shut. I sat on the porch chair. The wood was warm beneath me. I looked up at the sky. No shadows. No footsteps. No knocking at the door. For the first time in nearly 50 years, I wasn't afraid of what might be outside, because I already knew it could never be worse than what had already left. The seasons move more gently now. This spring, Rose planted marigolds beneath the kitchen window. She says they're for protection. I told her I don't need protecting anymore, but I let her plant them anyway. There's something comforting about watching life grow from nothing, especially after you've spent years crawling through ashes. We don't talk about William. His name isn't forbidden, but it no longer lingers like a ghost in these halls. That, I think, is what death really means, not the end of a heartbeat, but the end of someone's power over your life. I still sit on the porch every morning. I still sip tea from the same cup, the one with the chipped edge, and the rose print that never faded, no matter how many times it went through the dishwasher. Some days, neighbors drop by. They call me Miss Helen. They ask if I need anything from the store. One day, a younger woman named Camille stopped by. She told me her own mother had been taken advantage of by her brother. She asked how I found the strength to stand up and fight. I told her the truth. I didn't start out strong. I started with silence. But silence builds up over time. And one day, it comes back like a wave. Now, there's a small photo of me and Rose by the fireplace. We took it the day after the court decision. She's smiling. I'm not, but not because I wasn't happy. I just felt full of something I hadn't felt in years, peace. The wooden box is still in the fireplace. It's empty now, not because I'm ashamed, but as a message. I keep it there to remind myself that grief can be used against you, that love without honesty can become a chain. But memory is sharp, and I've finally learned how to use it. One quiet evening, as the wind tapped on the window, Rose turned to me and asked, "Do you think he ever really loved you?" I thought about it, then said, "I think he loved himself first. Maybe at one point there was space for me in that love, but love without loyalty isn't love. It's pride." She nodded. We didn't need to say more. The door William once stood behind when he came back is still there. Same wood, same handle. But I'm not scared of it anymore, because now I know who I am, and I know who won't ever walk through that door again. The world forgot about me once. My own family tried to erase me, but I remembered everything, every cruel word, every long silence that I turned into strength. Now, they remember me, not as a widow, not as a problem, but as a woman who carried a box full of lies and still walked out stronger. If this story touched something in you, if it made you think of your mother, your grandmother, or even yourself, I want you to hold on to that feeling for a moment. Let it stay. Let it echo. Because this isn't just a story about being betrayed. It's not only about a man who left and came back, or a son who forgot what love should look like. This is a story about something many of us know all too well: silence. That quiet kind of pain that doesn't shout, doesn't fight back right away, but waits. For a long time, Helen, like many women of her time, thought love meant staying, that being loyal meant not asking questions, that if you gave up enough, someone would one day thank you. But sometimes the world forgets women like Helen. It claps for the loud ones, the bold ones, the ones who take without asking. And it leaves behind the quiet women, the ones who scrubbed floors while others rested, who skipped meals so their kids could eat, who kept their pain tucked away in their skirts, in their hands, in the spaces between heartbeats. But silence isn't weakness. It's a record. It holds everything. And sometimes silence turns into justice. Helen didn't shout. She didn't hit anyone. She didn't beg to be noticed. She just waited. She watched. She remembered. And when the moment came, she stood strong, not just for herself, but for every woman who was ever told she was too much, too old, too emotional, or too easy to forget. She showed us that revenge doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it comes with truth, with court papers, with calm, with a quiet but firm no. That means more than any scream. Maybe you saw yourself in her. Maybe you've been overlooked, ignored, pushed aside. Maybe someone made you feel like your time was done. Let me tell you, it's not. Your time isn't over, because truth doesn't have a deadline, and justice doesn't expire. At Grandma True Stories, we tell stories like Helen's not because they're simple, but because they matter. These are the stories no one writes headlines about. The ones that happen behind closed doors, in small kitchens, on front porches where no one usually listens. But we do, and we share them not for pity, but for power, because every woman who speaks her truth becomes a light for the next. So if you believe that the quietest woman in the room might just be the strongest, stay. Subscribe. Listen. More stories are coming. And when a grandma speaks, the world finally listens.